Thank you so much for joining us on another Sunday edition of the program African News. African News where we bring to you major stories around the world. My name is Tosin Olowo. Today we'll be starting with Nigeria. President Bola Tinubu has assured that all bottlenecks and hindering the realization of the agricultural sector's potential, including livestock production, will be removed to enable food sovereignty and export. He gave the assurance at a bilateral meeting with Brazilian President Luiz da Silva and other members of both countries' cabinets. According to a statement by his presidential aide, Bayo Onanuga, Tinubu noted that bureaucracy contributed to delays in realizing the agricultural sector's potential. The president informed the Brazilian leader and delegation that Nigeria was already undergoing reforms to reposition the economy for global competitiveness, particularly in agriculture, where it already had a competitive advantage. On livestock farming, President Tinubu highlighted the effort of his administration to boost investment in poultry, cattle rearing, and fisheries, adding that blue economy also holds potential for long-term partnerships between Nigeria and Brazil. He said Nigeria was ready for a strong partnership and immediate action to stimulate food production. According to the statement, President Lula assured that all agreements with Nigeria will be regularized and the MOUs will be updated and signed without delay during President Tinubu's next visit. Moving to Côte d'Ivoire, 4 months ahead of Côte d'Ivoire's presidential election, Ivorian diaspora is mobilizing in Paris and calling for democratic and inclusive elections. This rally was organized by the main opposition party, Youth of the Democratic Party of Côte d'Ivoire. The demonstrators are protesting the exclusion of their presidential candidate, Tadjoun Teham, from the electoral list for the October vote. Beyond support for their candidate, the party is speaking out against a climate of repression and fear in the West African country in the run-up to the election.
It's important for me to be here to support my party and show the whole of Côte d'Ivoire that even if we're abroad, we participate in the expression of democracy in the country where we live. Precisely, our concern is that the president refuses to include our leader on the electoral list, and that won't please us, really not at all. This election must be inclusive, and all political party presidents must be able to stand, so that at the end of the day, the winner truly represents the president of our country. We no longer have the right to demonstrate properly. The president of the student JPDCI was arrested 2 days ago. The president of the rural JPDCI was also arrested. So we no longer have the right to speak out in Côte d'Ivoire.
La démocratie est aussi des élections.
Young people just want democracy and peaceful elections. Côte d'Ivoire has never had peaceful elections. Today in Côte d'Ivoire, when we talk about October, everyone is afraid. The population is frightened. You only have to hear October 2025. We were born, and until now, we've never known peaceful elections. We want it to start now.
Chinese tourists have flocked into the Casa Arts Bon Adou, one of the most popular tourist destinations in South Morocco. These visitors are known for their passion for purchasing traditional gifts during their travels and show special appreciation for local handcraft. The Casa Arts Ben Adou is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, giving a strong appeal for culturally minded Chinese tourists. According to the tour guides, the Morocco's varied landscapes that appeal to Chinese tourists. According to tourism researcher Zidao Balkans, tourism from China has grown hugely in the last 10 years.
One of the main reasons I chose to travel to Morocco this time is because I watched a North African film, which made me very fascinated by Casablanca and the customs and culture of Morocco. Before 2016, there were fewer than 10,000 Chinese tourists a year. But after the King of Morocco cancelled visa requirements, their numbers increased significantly until reaching over 140,000 tourists in 2019. During COVID, there was a decline across all markets, but in 2023 and 24, we saw strong momentum. Once direct flights opened between Morocco and China, that number could reach 250 or even 300,000. Chinese tourists are different from other types of clients, and we try to satisfy them in every way. They enjoy discovering Moroccan cuisine, which is very different from Asian food. We aim to please them with various Moroccan dishes, like tagine and couscous, and especially with warm water, which is very important to them.
Senegalese Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko has expressed concerns about the erosion of international norms and the growing tendency of some powerful countries to unilaterally impose their own rules. Sonko, who was in Tajin for the 2025 Summer Davos, criticized U.S. tariff hikes on its trade partners, emphasizing that certain nations have historically asserted their influence by establishing rules that primarily serve their own interests. However, he noted that these countries now seek to break away from these rules because the world is now shifting towards a more balanced order. He underscored the significance of initiatives from the Global South, particularly within the BRICS, a group of emerging economies, as a vital step towards fostering a more equitable multilateral world. Its presidency, and Kenya's William Ruto was already facing calls for him to leave. Protesters stick their index fingers in the air, saying Ruto must vacate the presidency within his term expires in 2027. For others who want him gone only 3 years after he was elected, even that was alone. Kenya's fifth president became a remarkably unpopular leader barely 2 years into his presidency after proposing aggressive tax measures that made saw as a betrayal of his campaign promise to support working class people. Ruto said new taxes were necessary to keep government running. He survived the tax protest movement last year as thousands of young people took to the street in an unsuccessful attempt to force his resignation. Ruto now faces a new wave of protests, provoked most recently by the death of a blogger in police custody. Many Kenyans saw the incident as symptomatic of bad rule in Kenya, with the authoritarian president firmly in control of the legislature and security apparatus corruption. Protesters say they want to rid the government of corruption marked by theft of public resources and the seemingly extravagant lifestyles of politicians.
I don't feel like they're open to criticism because the moment you mention some things, you disappear. So I don't feel like they want to be told about how they are doing or how they should be doing things. So they are not receptive. They don't want feedback from us.
We ourselves, we decide to become the change we want, as young people and everyone, because the system will never work for us. Yeah, that's it. The earlier we realize that, the better. So the system will never help us and change anything, so we have to do it for ourselves. Yeah.
The Gen Zs and the millennials, where some of us fall. Primarily they feel excluded, and two, this government was elected on the basis of a bottom-up economy to raise those who are underprivileged, those who are surviving on $1 a day, and be in a position at least to come up. But clearly the hustler narrative died immediately President William Ruto took over power.
Meanwhile, 1 month after his death in police custody, Kenya blogger Albert Ojwang has been laid to rest in his hometown of Omabo. Thousands of people turned out to pay their respects to the 31-year-old journalist whose death sparked a violent protest after an autopsy reports discredited police claims that he died from self-inflicted wounds. Ojwang's death at Nairobi Central Police Station reignited long-standing public anger about police brutality across the country. 2 police officers have been arrested in connection with the incident, and the Kenyan Parliament held televised hearings about the ongoing investigation.
We rest our lives in the hands of God. I have sent off my son in peace. May he rest in peace.
We are not going to rest. What you saw in Nairobi, we are not going to rest until justice is done. And remember, we are soon celebrating Sabasaba. We will do Sabasaba for Albert Ojwang. Police wanafaa to protect.
Police are supposed to protect life and property, but police are the ones taking lives of Kenyans. We condemn this act vehemently, and we are saying that any police officer who was involved in killing Albert Ojwang must be arrested, taken to court, and jailed for life.
Humanitarian organizations have sounded the alarm over attacks on healthcare facilities in Sudan, warning that 70% of them are closed or barely operational. In a report, Doctors Without Borders said that access to healthcare was nearly impossible due to systematic attacks, while the remaining operational facilities are under constant threat. MSF particularly warned against violence in El Fasher City, the capital of the North Darfur province, that made it near impossible for residents there and nearby displacement camps to access healthcare. As of April, only one hospital with surgical capacity remained partially operational, serving an estimated population of over 1 million.
We call to all warring parties to stop violence against the civilian, health facilities, and civilian infrastructure, and to facilitate a large-scale humanitarian response. As to international actors, UN member states and bodies, the states with influence over the warring parties who provide them military, economic, or diplomatic support, they must use all their leverage to prevent further mass atrocities. They must place protection of civilians at the core of their engagement with the warring parties.
In a sign of strengthening ties, South African President Cyril Ramaphosa has welcomed his Australian counterpart Alexander Van der Bellen to discuss bilateral relations. The meetings between the two leaders focused on clean energy, tourism, jobs, and cultural exchange. Van der Bellen said Austria and South Africa are two countries committed to building a brighter future. Ramaphosa also touched on the importance of trade and investment ties that Austria has with South Africa and how it can grow further. Territory under the pretext of fighting armed groups without Kinshasa authorization. As many as 1,000 troops have deployed in Bunia as well as the Magana authorities into the province, according to UN experts. Uganda authorities say that deployment was meant to tackle the threat posed by Kodako, an armed group operating in Uturi. Kodako fighters have been accused of carrying out attacks on Lake Albert, where some of Uganda's oil installations are located. But UN experts urge that the actual motivation was to secure vital economic interests, especially the gold and timber trade. Now we'll go back to South Africa, where we told you that as sign of strengthening ties, South African President Cyril Ramaphosa has welcomed his Australian counterpart, Alexander Van der Bellen, to discuss bilateral relations. The meeting between the two leaders focused on clean energy, tourism, jobs, and cultural exchange. Van der Bellen said Austria and South Africa are two countries committed to building a brighter future. Ramaphosa also touched on the importance of trade and investment ties that Austria has with South Africa and how it can grow further.
South Africa is Austria's largest trading partner on the African continent and accounts for almost a third of Austria's total exports to the African continent. More than a quarter of all African imports to Austria are from South Africa.
Now moving to Mali, the bill granting General Assimi Goïta as an unelected presidential mandate has been approved by Mali's transitional parliament. The text of the bill reads that Goïta's mandate can be renewed as many times as necessary without elections. The text got unanimous approval from all 131 members of the Transitional Assembly present. 41-year-old Goïta has exercised presidential power since August 2020 when the military overthrew then-President Ibrahim Keïta, blaming him for his handling of a deadly Islamist militant insurgency in Mali's north. Mali's junta has resisted regional and international pressure to organize elections and a return to civilian rule. And now moving to Zambia. Zambia has officially declared an end to its latest cholera outbreak, following 5 consecutive weeks without any new report infections. The Health Ministry confirmed that the final wave of the outbreak resulted in 496 cases and 9 deaths. Health Minister Elijah Mushima says the last confirmed case was identified in May this year in Kibwa District, Central Province. While it marks a major step towards the public health, officials warned that the country was not entirely out of the woods. The threat of cholera remains, especially as Zambia continues to grapple with prolonged drought conditions that undermine access to clean water and a proper hygiene, increasing the risk of future outbreaks. That's it. Thank you so much for being part of the news. We'll see you again next week for another edition. Do have a wonderful evening.